And Damon's like, wait, well, hold up. I'll give you one of the girls if you just let me be. And they're like, oh, cool, let's choose. What's up, everybody? Happy October. I hope everyone is having an amazing October so far. Before we get started, if anyone out there is doing a 31 days of Halloween or a 31 on 31, let me know what your movie lists are. I'm super curious. If you have a letterbox, maybe drop it in there. If you have like a list, I'd like to see what your plans are and what you're going to be watching this October. I've tried that before, and every year I just can't commit to a movie every night. I've tried my best. I follow some people on Facebook that committed to 2 or 3 movies every night. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how you have that kind of time, but if you're doing that, let me know below. I'm super curious. So tonight I got to see the long-awaited sequel to the Exorcist films, Exorcist Believer from David Gordon Green. And going into this film, I was highly excited, a little bit concerned, but excited and naively optimistic about this film. And funny enough, it seemed like across the board, everyone was hating on this film. Everyone was saying David Gordon Green was going to screw it up, screw up the franchise, and it was going to be a disaster, which I think is funny because I understand a lot of people didn't like the Halloween trilogy, but most people liked 1 or 2 of those movies. And even though there are haters of all of them, and some people that just thought he absolutely ruined Halloween, there are people who loved the entire trilogy, especially the 3rd film, and really, really support what he did with that trilogy. There are big fans. So I find it funny that unanimously, almost, it seemed like everyone was like, no, Exorcist is going to suck, even before the trailer came out. So I do think that's funny, but at the same time, unfortunately, those people were, for the most part, correct. This was not the Exorcist film that we should have gotten. This $30 million Blumhouse legacy sequel coming out in October. Was this? Are you kidding me? No. But before I get into any of the details about the movie, real quick, I want to talk about David Gordon Green's team. Because in my opinion, the Halloween trilogy failed on one specific section, and that's the writing. Now, I mean, you can say what you want about him as a director or other flaws, but in my opinion, when it came down to most of the flaws and the things that people hated in that trilogy, it was the script. It was the writing, it was the characters, the dialogue, the terrible direction that the films went, no cohesive storylines. And when you look at the scripts and the writers for each of those films, there's 3 to 4, sometimes 5 writers on each movie. Not giving credit to John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, original writers, but like each film had 3 to 4, sometimes 5 writers on those films. And first of all, that's just too many writers. But secondly, why is Danny McBride writing an Exorcist sequel? Now, I understand he pitched the idea with David Gordon Green of the Halloween reboot or legacy sequel, whatever you want to call it. I understand why he was on that team for that trilogy, but why is he writing an Exorcist sequel? I don't understand that. I get he's friends with David Gordon Green, but what happened to picking like the best people for the job? You know, I just don't understand why Danny McBride is writing this film. And even besides Danny McBride, he may not even be the issue. I just don't understand why he's on there. But, you know, he's written some shows and created some shows that are really popular. His movies, that's another thing, you know, they're comedy. It could just be like, you can't really tell what you're getting because he's a mostly comedy, but he has some successful screenwriting under his belt, at least. There's another writer that has done barely anything. And then the 4th screenwriter, besides David Gordon Green, wrote the Firestarter reboot, remake, and the Insidious sequel, and films that have not done well and have been commercially and critically poorly received. So why are they the team of people that we're getting to bring us an Exorcist sequel? Now, say what you want about the original film, but The Exorcist is one of the most famous horror films of all time, period. Even if you don't like it. I don't care if you don't like it, if you love it. It's one of the most famous horror films of all time. Is that the team of people that are bringing us a new story into 2023, bringing it forward, bringing us a legacy sequel? Why is that the team of writers? I don't get it. And unfortunately, I see a lot of the same issues coming into this film that I saw in the Halloween trilogy. It's different. I don't think all of the writers are the same. but you've got David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, 2 other writers. So you've got the same character problem, the same dialogue problems, not as bad, but the same paper thin character decisions. And there's something about the way David Gordon Green creates his stories that I can't quite pinpoint or put my finger on, but it's like he throws in these ideas and these themes that are really cool on paper, but he doesn't connect them to anything. Like there's concepts that I see what he's going for, but then they don't make sense logically in the film. And he does that a lot, and there's a lot of that in this film. And so without getting into all the negatives, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. There's something about David Gordon Green's filmmaking that I really like him as a director, but when it comes to his themes and his story elements, he needs to stop letting 4 people write his scripts. And Blumhouse needs to look at these scripts and say, no, like if you just read this script, if someone just read it with 4 different people, hand someone else, someone should have looked this over at Blumhouse and be like, this is not what we paid $400 million for the rights to. $30 million is a lot of money still. And Blumhouse, someone at Blumhouse, I love them and respect them for giving their director's final cut and not micromanaging, but someone needs to look at these screenplays and give them a once-over and say, hey, this is not up to par with what we need from an Exorcist sequel or a Halloween sequel. And rant over about that. That's just something I needed to talk about with David Gordon Green because I do like his style of filmmaking. It just, someone needs to read these scripts. So before I get into the things that I really did enjoy about Exorcist Believer, this is going to be a spoiler review from here on out. All spoilers that I will be talking about. If anyone interested in a spoiler-free review, I apologize, but I'm going to be going into details and just talking about the things I did and did not enjoy about this movie. So getting right into the things I did like about The Exorcist Believer, the first thing is Michael Simmons, who is the director of photography for this film. He's also the director of photography for the Halloween trilogy. And as I said in my reaction to the trailer, I really enjoy the way that David Gordon Green shoots things. Now, obviously, a big part of that is his cinematographer, who I wasn't sure if it was the same person, but it looked the same to me, and it is Michael Simmons. And I do think this film is shot really well, and it's lit really well, for the most part. Not the whole film. There's a clear spot when the film shifts, and I think that it's a little more poorly shot, but I think that's more director decision-making, and I don't know if it's, mostly Michael Simmons that I'm really enjoying, or mostly David Gordon Green style that I'm really enjoying that's translated through him. I'm not sure which is which, because when I look at his catalog, the director of photography, he hasn't done a whole lot that would make me think that I would really enjoy him as a cinematographer, but I feel like he's going to be an up-and-coming guy to watch because I really like the way that he shoots things and the way that he lights things. And he did Paranormal Activity 2 and like some other stuff. It's like that, you can't really tell if that is an indicator of your skill or not. But anyway, I do really like the way he shoots this film. And I think that whether there's some stylistic choices like handheld in the beginning that I wasn't super huge on right away, besides that, that's more of a director choice. I do think that everything is lit really well. I do think that, again, the set design is really good in this film for the most part. And so I do think that the set design, the details that are go into that, costume design, all of those aspects of it, as well as the director of photography and the way the film looks, I really enjoy. I like the colors a lot. I couldn't help but finding like the first like 1/3 of this film just really entertaining, really enjoyable, with the shots of like the town, the city, and I don't know where's this film, but it reminds me of like Massachusetts or something like that, and the leaves and just the beautiful older houses, and just really enjoyed the atmosphere and the way things looked. And then when they're inside, I really, really enjoy the use of color and lights and, blue on people's faces when it's not necessarily exactly accurate to what should be on screen. It's not like they're like, have like neon blue and red. It's not like, that style or something like that, but it's definitely they're using colors in spots where they may not necessarily be accurate on screen, but I really enjoy that. And I think that there's a lot of detail put into the lighting and shadow that goes unnoticed that I don't notice in a lot of modern horror films. So for me, again, personally, that's something I really enjoy. And that's something I was looking for in the beginning of this film. Again, towards the latter half of the film, maybe like the third act or before that, actually, there is a noticeable shift where the film itself just takes a turn and for being not as good. And everything is shot a little more generically. They're very, very... I couldn't help but notice that there was no use of wides and there's not a lot of use of mediums and there wasn't a lot of creative shots. It's like the film starts off so creatively shot and then it literally goes to like just these like close-ups of people's face and over the shoulder again and again and again and again and again. And I don't know who's to blame for that, but it's a noticeable shift in the film that really brings it down. Anyway, back into the positives. Gotta shout out Christopher Nelson again because I love the work that he does, and I love to listen to the podcast, The Thing with Two Heads. If you guys haven't checked that podcast out, you should absolutely check it out. I love listening to Christopher Nelson talk about films and makeup and the stuff that he does. It makes you feel like, obviously, kind of you know him or you feel like you're inside his head a little bit. So when I go see his work, it just makes me like excited to see his name pop up, which is stupid, I know, because I don't know him, but it just makes me feel excited to see the work that he's done and how he gets excited about being on set. And he's a fan of these films. And so I think he did a great job in the film. I think that the stuff that is used looks really good. I think they have some good creature design, great makeup effects. When there are gore effects or things like that in this film, to which there are not many, I think everything looks really good. It looks solid. I think that he came up with some really great designs and some great ideas that, unfortunately, I don't think were used enough in the film. Maybe that's, that what they came up with was just, what they intended to use. But I do think what he did in the film is really good. I think he knocked it out of the park again for what this film was designed to have in it anyway. For what's in the movie, I think he did a great job. The other thing is the performances in this film, especially from the two young girls and the dad, were really good. I can't remember the names, so I'm going to look them up real quick. Olivia O'Neill and Lydia Jewett were both really good in this film. I think that it's super difficult to have a young actress step into a role like this, like Linda Blair did, and have so much demand on you, and you really have a lot to carry in this film. And I think that they did an excellent job for when they were used. I don't think that the problems with their characters and where the film goes is their fault. I think that's definitely somebody else's fault. It's the director's fault and the writer's fault. And I think for what they had to work with, I think they did a great job. They were very convincing. The parts that were not convincing was not their fault. And so I think for that, while they probably could have done a better job working with David Gordon Green in certain aspects and the ADR voiceover people. Again, I don't think all of the flaws with that are necessarily their fault. I think they did a great job, and I would love to see more of them. I wish there was more of them in this film, but unfortunately, I just don't feel like we got a lot of them, and that kind of sucked. The other person is Leslie Odom Jr. The dad, I think, was actually really good, and I was a little worried from the trailer. I didn't think he was going to be great, but I actually think he did really great in this film. I thought his performance, when he was just trying to be like the single dad and the loving father, was believable enough. Again, the problems with their characters is more writing department. What they had to work with, I think he was believable enough as like the loving father, and they had this good relationship with his daughter. And I think that when it came time for him to become serious dad, and the girls are, in trouble, and he has to, figure out a way to help them, I think he was very believable in that role without being like over the top dramatic or anything like that. Of course, again, towards the latter half of the film, when all the characters become like paper cutout versions of themselves, he also does, but I don't think that's necessarily his fault. When he's used effectively in this film, I think he was really good. The rest of the acting was passable for the most part. Legacy character, we will talk about when I get into the negatives, but for the most part, the main performances, I think, were really good. I also really enjoyed the setting of this film. Again, I don't know where it's shot. I probably should look that up, but It looks like Massachusetts or somewhere. It looks like a beautiful like town with these fall autumn leaves and these older houses, and it's just like really gorgeous neighborhoods. And so I really enjoyed the setting of where it was filmed, and I think that really added to the film. And the first third of the film, which is like my last positive, is just like the first third of the film, I feel like it's solid. It starts off pretty strong. You know, a little shaky here and there. Literally, Cam's a little shaky, but also it starts off a little shaky, but it builds a solid start with these characters. I think they do some great character development in the first like third of the film. I think David Gordon Green does a really good job, in my opinion, of setting up the tension that should have been delivered, building some suspense without doing anything crazy over the top, and really fleshing out this story that we should see unfold in the third act. And I feel like I really enjoyed that 1/3 of the film, and it could have led to a solid Exorcist film. I was, actually thinking maybe the reviews might be off and I might enjoy this. Unfortunately, until like second act of the film, and then things change. So on to my negatives, to which there are many, unfortunately, and I don't feel like I can fully voice all of the issues I have with this. I will try to get into some more details in a second, but to summarize, this film is just completely spineless. It falls flat. It has nothing to offer, takes no risks, no chances, and it does all of the same generic things, but in a worse way somehow. The climax of the film, goes absolutely nowhere. It's like almost a joke to me how anticlimactic this film is. And it doesn't even leave off on a cliffhanger. Like that seems like that could be an issue when you're going into a trilogy. And I was afraid of that, but I almost would have preferred that. Not really, but it just goes nowhere. The ending of the film just makes no sense to me, which gets into my overall biggest negative about the film, which I think is just, it's spineless. It takes no chances. And I know David Gordon Green had talked about he wanted to make a film about choices. And I understand that. And I think that's really cool in theme, in concept. But it's not a film about choices because he doesn't show us any choices in the film to be made. Things just happen because of the fact that he wanted to show this concept of this relationship of people supporting each other, neighbors, friends, family, and the choices that you have to make. Like the father in the very beginning choosing his wife or his child. I understand that in concept. And I understand why he wanted to bring a bunch of different religions and a bunch of different ideology and things into this film because he wanted to show that concept. But that's not an Exorcist film. First of all, in the beginning of the film, the father doesn't make a choice because we don't see him struggle with it. And if you're trying to make a film about choices, we need to see the characters struggle with that choice. He saved it for a third act reveal, which was pretty useless and also predictable. But if you're trying to make a film about characters and their choices, we need to see them make choices. And all it does is cut fast forward to the daughter being 13 years old or 13 years later or whatever. And so we're just left to assume he made that choice. But whether he did or not make the choice is not the point. The point is that David Gordon Green wants to make a film about choices. So you need to show us characters making choices. And this is my problem with the writing in the Halloween trilogy and this. There's themes and ideas that could work on paper, but you need to flesh them out. You need to show us how they work. Not just show a film about choices and be like, yeah, it's a film about people making choices. Do they make choices in the film? I don't think so. The daughter doesn't go through any indecisiveness about lying to her father or a story or have any sort of character arc in any time in this film where she needs to make a choice. And then we have to live with our choices and choices that will matter down the road, which is where he's going with this trilogy. From what I heard, choices that we make will affect us down the road. But no one made any choices. She literally went out to the woods and she had a seance, I guess, but there was no character arc showing us any sort of like backlash against her father, or yeah, she misses her mom who she never met. I get that, but that's not a choice. That's not enough to go off of. We need something else. We need something else, some groundwork for this development with the father and the daughter, for her to make this choice that will then have repercussions. You can't have repercussions for something that didn't have an option and have that be a part of your story. And then later in the film, when they're making choices about the exorcism, there's not really, like, there's no choices being made. They just throw everything at the wall, every religion, and that makes no sense. In an exorcist film, if they are demons, then there has to be some. You can give me Native American, you can give me whatever, but there has to be some sort of thing that connects to it. There has to be something to actually get rid of the demons, you know? And exorcism has to be exercised by something. You can't just throw everything at the wall and hope that something sticks, which is exactly what they do in this film. And then nothing even does. They don't do anything. There's no priests. There's no actual like exorcism. And get real quick about the priest, just because this is just another negative, and I know I'm ranting a lot, but like a lot of these exorcism films at least show us in some way or another that exorcisms are a thing of the past. And so these modern priests don't do them. And so churches don't sign off on them. I get that. But this film like doesn't show that as being like a conflict. And it also doesn't build this concept that this priest can get fired or have repercussions for not doing the exorcism or doing the exorcism. Again, I know he's trying to show a film about choices, and the priest had a choice. But there is so little development for the priest and the backstory with the church that it doesn't even make sense when he's like in his car praying. First of all, you know he's going to come and help, which is obvious anyway, but there's just no groundwork to be put in for this priest to have a choice that then later gets him killed. There's repercussions built upon nothing. And that's just my biggest problem with this movie overall, besides the fact that it just falls flat, is that going into this in the trailer, I said that line, it takes all kinds. And that's the Evil Dies Tonight of the Exorcism franchise or trilogy. They don't repeat it multiple times, but it sticks out like a sore thumb when it takes all kinds. It's clearly he's trying to say something with that, but it doesn't make sense in the film you're trying to make. If you're trying to make a film about mental illness and you're trying to make a film where like the hospital is trying to treat something and then you have to like fight the hospital to try to treat them your way, there's choices, there's repercussions, there's, you may need all kinds of help, hospital help for certain parts and then other help for other, but there's nothing to build that upon. The hospital even lets them take the daughters out. They put them in like a mental institution, or his daughter into a mental institution, which we see, which doesn't happen, by the way. You can't just check someone in and then just like take them out, no problem, willy-nilly. And it takes time to get people into that. They wouldn't be able to just take them from the hospital, be like, oh yeah, we can't treat you anymore, go to the mental institution. That doesn't happen anyway. But again, it's like there's not really anything showing that, oh, did we need the mental institution, or was that just to get to here? Did we need this priest, or is that just to get here? Do we need this lady to blow smoke in the fire? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Is it smoke? Is it a demon? What is it? You have to pick something. And even if you're afraid of offending somebody, like Halloween Ends, there had guts. This movie takes no chances. You've got to pick something, because that's a movie. If you're doing nothing, then it's not an Exorcist movie. You can't just have both. It's a horror movie and then up for interpretation, but this is an Exorcist film. So you can't do that. You've got to pick something and have it make some sort of tangible sense for how we get the demons out. But at the end of the film, the demons ask them to make a choice with the girls, which is a cool, again, concept. All right. So if you're still listening to me rant, hear me out for a second. Conceptually, girls have to be chosen. The parents have to fight against each other or whatever, and one girl lives and one girl dies. great in concept. But in practical use in the movie, you're trying to exorcise the demon because it's called the Exorcist. So why would you let the demon control what you're choosing? It's like they're like, oh, let's just try to exorcise this demon. And the demon's like, wait, well, hold up. I'll give you one of the girls if you just let me be. And they're like, oh, cool, let's choose. No, get rid of the demon. That's the whole point of the movie. So why are you like that? Again, the concept is good, but it doesn't make any sense in the movie. Smoke comes out of the one girl. It's just like, what did they even do? Was it the Bible? Was it the church? I don't get. There's multiple religions in here too. There's like Pentecostal and there's Catholic. Those clash. Those religions disagree on things. So you can't, like, it doesn't make sense. You can't have the same thing, but then disagree. And they're all in like a room together, just saying their thing. And at some point, it literally was like, I felt like I was on like a carnival ride with two possessed girls in the middle. And I'm just like in this ride. And they're like, blah, 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 blah. Oh, the smoke. Oh, like, you know, like saying their thing. Like they're just saying their religious thing and like doing their religious thing. And they're all taking their turns. And the girls are just sitting in the middle like, and it felt like a ride. Like I was like, what is even happening right now? These just paper cutouts of each religion trying to show like a diversity, but it just doesn't make any sense at all. It goes nowhere. And again, at the end of the film, what helped? Did anything help? Are we going to find out in the sequel that nothing helped? But then it's just like nothing helped. But what was the point? So before I go to like off down a rabbit hole, I do want to just say the music also sucks in this film. I did not think it was very good at all. When they used the actual theme, the Tubular Bells, I think it's used okay in a certain spots and then very poorly for the most part. And the rest of the music in the film just is not very good. I think the acting from a lot of the side characters not very good. Oh, let's not even get into the legacy character, which I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Ellen Bernstein. What an insult. Are you kidding me? And I don't even like stabbing her in the eyes. That's fine for me. I don't even care about that. I thought it was the best part of the character. Bring her in to have something happen, but they clearly brought her in just to do that. And not to mention, she's there just to double down on the concept of it takes all kinds. Because even though her daughter was possessed, somehow she's come to the conclusion that after writing a book and researching all these possessions, that any of it's real, but none of it's real, but all of it's real, but bad is real. So if bad is real, then good is real because it takes all kinds. But seriously, what a poor, I mean, first of all, her acting in this is really bad. And I mean, I can't say it's necessarily her fault, but she's bad in the film and very poorly used. And just, again, like you take her out of the film, it makes absolutely no difference at all. Why is she there? Just to get people in their seats, but like, did you not think we were going to watch the movie and then we're going to get mad? And you've got 2 more movies to get us in there for, right? I just can't help but think of the wise words from Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson in Scream 4. When you're doing these, that's what part of what makes Scream 4 so underrated. When you're doing these like legacy sequels or prequels or remakes or whatever they are, like the number one rule, don't F with the originals. And that's exactly the problem. You can do a side story. You can give them a happy ending. You can not use them if you don't want to or whatever. But if you're bringing these characters back, do not bring them back just to ruin the stories that we've already got from them. I freaking hate when they do that. And that's exactly what they did in this film with Linda Blair also, of course, who's in the film for like 3 seconds. And she's just there so that we can probably see her in the second or third one or to continue on the story. But you got to write this sad story for her. The set pieces through the third act are like non-existent. They're just sitting in a chair the whole time. There's no movement, no walking down the stairs, no flinging in the bed, no throwing things around. There's not even like any real showing that they can move things with their mind until they do it once. And then they don't do it again. No cohesiveness to this film at all. And unfortunately, that third act just goes nowhere. I don't understand why you just sit them in a chair and have people stand around them, and that's your climax. That's your climax to one of the most famous horror films of all time, to a sequel to one of the most famous horror films of all time. That's your climax. Sit them in a chair in a room and have smoke come out of the fire. And unfortunately, like I said in my trailer reaction, I was hoping they were holding something back for that third act. I thought that maybe they didn't show us everything, but I said it could be one of those cases where they actually showed us everything in the trailer, but it's just not that much. They don't have that much in the film. And unfortunately, that's probably the worst outcome. And that's exactly what we got. There's just not that much in the film. There's hospital, then they're in a mental hospital, they're in a bed, then they're in chairs. And that's it. That's what we get with the follow-up to Linda Blair's incredible performance, amazing practical effects in that film. And this is what you give us? I just can't believe that this is what they sat down and were like, yep, that's good. That's it. Like, you can't save that for the second or third film. I'm sorry, but you can't. You'd be better to give us everything, all like throw everything at the wall, just everything you've got in terms of like scares and ideas, and give it all to us in the first film. And it'd be better to have a crappy second film, because that's more expected anyway, than to give us to hold back. If that's what you're doing, and if that's not what you're doing, I just can't imagine that they watched this film back and thought, yep, that's it, that's good. That's deserving of a legacy sequel to The Exorcist. This video is probably going to be way too long already. I just lost one of my lights, so I need to stop talking. I apologize for this probably very random tangent of a film review, but if you stuck with me, I really appreciate it. Have you seen it, or did you stick through and watch through the spoilers anyway? Do you not care? Or are you going to go see it even after the spoiler talk, or do you just not care at all? Let me know what you think below, and let me know like what you think about David Gordon Green and his team, because I do think that he has skill. I do think he's a skilled director, but I don't know. Maybe he just needs to stop working with some of the same people. Even if you're friends with them, you got to stop letting them write scripts with you, or maybe it's him. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know below. I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you guys are having an amazing October. Take care.